Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Linguistics expert Peter Hyatt had Sebastian Rogers' biological father, Seth Rogers, on his show today, Sunday. Now, Seth didn't talk a whole lot, he mostly listened, but keep in mind that this was after he made his statements about working with Katie and Chris Proudfoot and his FUs and all those comments. So this is post all of that. I wanted to get this video out, so I'm not going to edit it, so you might hear me breathing, you might hear some unpleasant sounds from time to time, but I just don't have time today, and I wanted to get this out to you. Peter cited several risk factors in Sebastian's disappearance. These include that Sebastian is an autistic child with special needs. Hyatt pointed out that no two autistic children are alike. They all need to be approached differently. The second risk factor for Sebastian is being a high-needs child with a step-parent. Hyatt pointed out that it is really difficult to be a parent of a high-needs child, enter a step-parent who may not fully embrace the special needs stepchild or have the emotional capacity to dig up the patience and the love that such a child requires. Hyatt pointed out what he called the silence factor. He's referring to Katie and Chris Proudfoot's silence. And Hyatt also brought up under whose care Sebastian went missing, Katie Proudfoot. Hyatt said for a mother who is usually a child's nurturer to be silent, there are generally reasons for this. Normally, if a mother has nothing to hide, she's out front, she's giving a detailed description of the child, even if it's his style of walking. In this sense, the mother is calling out to the child. The mom will always move all conversations back to the child, as in, Sebastian, if you can hear me, fight, get out of there, get to a phone, etc. Per Hyatt, stepdad Chris Proudfoot did appear to be talking based on a script in those early interviews. This, of course, caused a backlash on social media. Hyatt told Seth Rogers that when he first saw Katie and Chris, he concluded that they'd coordinated their story. He believes that the mom, Katie, is withholding information. Hyatt also calls out the psychics that are out there trying to share they think Sebastian is, and he said he doesn't believe in any of these psychics. He said we have to listen when someone speaks, that is how we can find the truth. Hyatt said there are certain things people say linguistically that reveal the truth. We have to be good listeners. Hyatt also said the key to finding Sebastian, either alive or his remains, lies with the mother, Katie Proudfoot. He said to find out what happened to Sebastian, we have to find out under what circumstances he went missing or he went out that door, meaning the Proudfoot's door. Per Hyatt, Katie withheld that information, and Chris Proudfoot, who supposedly wasn't home at the time, sat next to her, helping sort of guard her words and what she said. Hyatt believes that the authorities need to ask Katie, what was Sebastian's mindset? What was he like at the moment he went out the door? Hyatt again repeated that Katie holds the key. Her account is the only evidence that can be presented to investigators to understand Sebastian's mindset and when whatever happened, happened. Hyatt said he's convinced this didn't suddenly become a surprise at 6 a.m. in the morning. He said that this is because of the Proudfoot's language. In the most recent interviews, the Proudfoots presented themselves perfectly, which means that they are now even scripting themselves more. Hyatt said the I love you that Katie quoted Sebastian as saying is problematic, even if he said it. The problem Hyatt has with Katie telling us this, that she said it to present herself as a good mother. Hyatt said the linguistic presentation of a good mother tells you something went wrong. He said this is alarming. Katie's need to present this while Sebastian is missing. Thus, Hyatt believes something was wrong, and I sadly feel that the thud, me personally, is connected to whatever happened to Sebastian. Perhaps this was an accident and Katie fears being blamed for it, or did she lose her patience with Sebastian? Did she overreact? Did Chris tell her how to punish Sebastian for something? And was part of that sending him out of the house barefoot and locking him out? Hyatt said that the other thing is when someone mentions a phone call as part of the story, it's generally problematic. Stepdad Chris Proudfoot wasn't home, but Katie connected him via the phone call part of the story. Why did Katie tell us about her 3-hour phone call with Chris while Sebastian was missing? Hyatt believes this call did take place, and he believes it's critical to whatever happened to Sebastian. Hyatt said what this tells him is that the 3-hour phone call is part of the story, and the more interviews Chris Proudfoot gave, the worse it got for him. Hyatt believes the key to finding Sebastian, once again, lies with Katie, and Chris Proudfoot is part of it. If Katie wants Sebastian found, Hyatt said she has to tell the truth about what happened, but her own self-preservation may be blocking it. Hyatt believes that somewhere after dinner at the Texas Roadhouse and 6 a.m. Monday morning, there is information that Katie is holding back. Hyatt said there was a blowout of some sort. Maybe Katie again locked Sebastian out, and then something bad happened. Per Hyatt, it's time for Katie to tell the truth. He also said that passing a polygraph is different from all this other linguistic stuff. So the investigators really need to follow up on what Katie Proudfoot has said. Even Seth Rogers, during this discussion, admitted that no one would want to live under Chris Proudfoot's rules, not even a cat. Seth admits Katie's not telling everything, and he doesn't know how long she will hold out with this information. So even though Seth said he wants to work with Katie and Chris Proudfoot, and I think he does, I think that his primary aim is to find out what happened to Sebastian. And he's still holding out hope that Sebastian is alive, but now he just really wants to know the truth. Seth really didn't want to comment on what Peter Hyatt had said. I get the feeling he's walking a very delicate line between trying to work with Katie and Chris Proudfoot and not ticking them off and sending them back to their RV and their silence. So I think Seth Rogers still believes that there's information that Katie and Chris are not sharing, and I think that he also wants to work with them, and perhaps it's because he's hoping that if he does, they will finally start to really talk and really share. I think his, outbursts with the F you at everybody might be because he felt he had to be on one side or the other, that it was Seth versus the Proudfoots, and now that he wants to sort of change his tactic and work with them, maybe he's trying to justify it, and he's feeling maybe a little defensive, and that is what all of that outburst stuff was about. That's my take on it. It's also possible that Seth wants to give everybody a fair shot. He doesn't know for sure what happened, so he doesn't want to assume that Katie and Chris are guilty of anything. I think his head is spinning. He's getting a lot of information from different sources. He's drinking it all in. He's trying to be open to all possibilities. He's trying to be fair. He just wants to find his son. And if that means working with Chris and Katie, so be it. And he doesn't want to justify it. Have to defend his decision. So if anybody's given him a hard time, he's like, F you, this is my kid, and I want to find my kid. Whatever I have to do it. The bottom line is, it's been a crazy 24 hours in the Sebastian Rogers case. We've seen Seth Rogers talking civilly to Chris Proudfoot, and we've seen Seth talking not so civilly to the audience, as in F you. And now we also saw him on Peter Hyatt's YouTube channel, listening intently as Hyatt said that Katie is the one who holds the key to the story and what happened to Sebastian in his expert opinion, based on the Proudfoot's language. My take is that Hyatt thinks that Sebastian did something wrong. Katie called Chris to talk about it. Chris may have given her advice on how to treat Sebastian, and his advice might have been to punish Sebastian by putting him outside without his shoes and locking the door. And then something bad happened, and Sebastian either disappeared, was fatally injured, or somebody abducted him. And Katie and Chris Proudfoot don't want to tell the whole truth because they don't want to get into any trouble with the law. I'm going to say allegedly because nobody knows except them. That's all for today. I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories. Do me a favor, if you learned anything in this interview, if you enjoyed it, smash that like button, and I'll leave a link to Peter Hyatt's channel in the description.